from the College by the Lake, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Local, regional, national, and international guests discussing the issues and topics affecting the way you live are on Forum, the North Idaho College Public Forum, with your host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart.
Following the broadcast of this program for now almost 21 years, or actually completing 21 years within another couple of months, we seem to always find from time to time a subject that we have never done before, and that is the occasion today. We're going to talk about Civil Air Patrol and how important that is to the people of the United States, and we've welcomed into the program today two guests from the Coeur d'Alene, Idaho Composite Squadron of the Civil Air Patrol. We're going to discuss what they do here and what they do around the United States in this very, very worthwhile public service. I welcome the program, first of all, to my far left is Mr. Dick Skinner, who is the operations manager of the Civil Air Patrol in Coeur d'Alene, and next to him is Gary Boyd, who is the commander. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to have you with us, and I have visited your facility and was very excited in having you on the program. And as always, I'm very pleased to have Janelle Burke as our regular panelist, who is an attorney in the state of Idaho, and I shall ask Janelle to commence today's questioning.
Most of us know something about the Civil Air Patrol, but we don't know exactly what it is. We've heard of it, but we don't understand exactly what it does or how it's organized. Let's start with you, Commander Boyd, and can you tell us a little bit about how it's organized and what the purposes of the Civil Air Patrol are?
Yes. As far as the organization is concerned, we're organized along military lines since we are the official auxiliary of the U.S. Air Force. We have a national headquarters, which is at Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, that's staffed with Civil Air Patrol members and U.S. Air Force personnel to help direct the program. The level below that are the region levels. We have 8 regions in the United States. Idaho happens to be in the Rocky Mountain region, which includes the state of Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, and Utah. Below that is what they call the wing level. Each state is a wing, plus there's 2 other ones, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico are also considered wings. Below that is a squadron level, which we're at, and that's in the local communities. The 3 missions of Civil Air Patrol are one, search and rescue, which we perform 80% of the search and rescue for the United States Air Force on downed aircraft. The second one is the cadet program, which we take students 12 through 18 and teach them a little bit about military science, aerospace education, and search and rescue. And the third one is aerospace education of the public. We hold a number of workshops throughout the United States for high school and junior high teachers on aerospace education. And National Headquarters also produces training aids, textbooks, items such as that for aerospace education.
It's very interesting subject here that we're talking about because it is, as I understand it, a volunteer effort for the most part. Since you're the Director of Operations, Mr. Skinner, can you tell us a little bit about the history of the organization and then how the volunteers work with the organization?
Yes, they were organized back in 1941 in December, just prior to the Pearl Harbor attack. And it was through the foresight of some of the aviation enthusiasts that this came about to be. Just a coincidence that it happened at that time. And Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia was one of the founders. And during World War II, they were actually credited with sinking a submarine. Their initial mission was to patrol the coastlines. And of course, after the war, there seemed to be no need for them. However, they saw some value in search and rescue. And has evolved into this, as Gary mentioned, we can do it cheaper. We know the country better than military. We fly lower and slower. And that's what we are today. And we also have this cadet program he talked about, and they're a very important part of our search team.
So now when you go out to search, you're using an airplane that is your own, or are you using airplanes that are supplied by the government, so to speak?
We currently have locally one Air Force aircraft that is assigned to us. There are 2 others in the state. They're trying to get more. But we also use our own aircraft, and they are reimbursed for the fuel that is used and some maintenance dollars also.
Are most of the people who belong to Civil Air Patrol who are not cadets pilots, would you say, or are there auxiliary people who, in addition to the pilots, mechanics and so forth?
The pilots are probably only about half of our force. There's a lot of people that are involved that even don't fly. We have an extensive communications network for national emergencies, so we have a number of people that may just be interested in communications. Other people that like to fly, pilots only part of the crew. There's 3 other sets of eyes usually in the airplane, the observers, and those people may not be pilots. The only requirement is that they're able to fly well or can get up to that point where they can fly without getting sick. We also have ground teams. Our cadets comprise most of our ground teams that go out on the ground and look for the aircraft. That's a very important part, not only the flying, but the ground portion of the search and rescue.
Okay.
Commander Boyd, I'm going to ask our staff to put up some photographs in a moment. I want to show our viewers what your facility looks like and one of your planes, and then some shots from the air as you have searched. I think it's important to have some visual aids for our viewers. I know they always appreciate that fact that in the first one that's come up on the screen, if you would describe to us what this is.
This is our home out at Coeur d'Alene Airport. The building itself belongs to what they call the Sheprock Foundation, and it was formed after Mr. Shepard and Mr. Rock had crashed on a flight back from Libby, Montana to Coeur d'Alene. They worked here at the local Cablevision office, and the Rock family saw fit to donate the use of this building to the Civil Air Patrol and other search and rescue organizations in the area.
And so you have your operations, all your operations out. This is actually out in Hayden Lake, is it not?
Yes, that's right. It's on the Hayden Lake Airport. It's a 2-story hangar and office complex.
And we're going to have them to put up in a moment one of the planes, and I know that Mr. Skinner talked about a minute ago that you have one plane from the government itself, but you have other planes that are privately owned or part of your organization, the funds that you raise?
Yes, they're member-owned aircraft. We have 12 members that own their own aircraft. They supply them for our use, and the government will reimburse them for the gasoline, oil, and a little bit for the maintenance when they use them on missions that we have.
So there's really a lot of charitable work. Now, this plane that's gone up on the screen here, is this one of the private owned planes?
No, this is our squadron aircraft. It's a 1981 Cessna 182. It's probably one of the best all-around search airplanes right now that's out on the market. The U.S. Air Force bought about 500 aircraft throughout the United States for Civil Air Patrol. Idaho Wing has 3 Cessna 182s. For mountain work, these are probably about the best aircraft you can get. And they supplied the aircraft and the avionics system for us.
When you have word that comes in that there has been a missing plane and it is presumed that it is down, you will have several planes in the air at the same time searching. I know I was out visiting, and it was really interesting the detail that you use. You take a map of the area where it is suspected the plane went down, and tell us a little bit how you engage in that search and how you assign planes to different, I would guess you would call it sections of the map.
Grids.
Grids.
One thing, we work for the Idaho Division of Aeronautics on any aircraft search. They're the controlling authority in Idaho, and they'll appoint a mission coordinator for the CAP resources. The first thing we do is determine the point last seen of the aircraft and determine his route. Then we.
If I could just interrupt, see, one of them that's come up on the screen. So when you assign a grid now, like here's a plane now, and this particular plane has spotted the crash, which you can just barely see in the trees, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. The aircraft is almost in the middle of the photograph there. It's real hard to see due to snow. This was taken a couple weeks after the aircraft was found. This one happened to be in May out of Troy, Montana, where the pilot had walked out of the crash site, actually.
I interrupt you because I want to get the photograph that's on the scene, but then go back to how you do assign those flights.
Okay, the grids are assigned. We have a number of resources we can use to assign the grids. One is satellite data. We try and find out if the aircraft's emergency locator transmitter is going off. That'll narrow down the search area. We also look for what they call an NTAP, which is a radar track of the airplane. If the airplane's traveling at high enough altitude, we can track it from the point where it takes off along the route. And usually, a lot of times where the aircraft disappears off the radar tracks is a good point to start searching. They're usually within that area, unless they've decided to fly low. Some of the other things are bad weather. We look for weather around routes. The things that normally happen to cause aircraft accidents, and we assign the grids from those points.
When you're doing that, and again, we have another shot here on the hillside, sometimes it takes a long time to find them. This particular one here, how long did it take to find this plane?
Actually, the only way it got found, the pilot walked out, and it took him about 5 days to walk out of it. The aircraft did have an emergency locator transmitter on it, but unfortunately it wasn't turned on. As you can see, some of the snow's melted in the area, but there was a lot of snow in the area at the time, and it was extremely difficult to see from the air.
When you take a look at a map, and we live in a very rugged area of the Northwest or the West with the Rocky Mountains and so forth. I've seen your maps, and each little grid on the map looks like a little tiny square. And so when I was noticing how many you have to cover, the first thing that came to mind to me, that number one, there is so much geographical area to cover, and then secondly, like the photograph we've had, that when it's down in those trees, and if it's a small plane, it doesn't disturb enough of the terrain to where it's easy to find you. Two things. One, you could just fly over it, but number two, you have so much area to cover. Is it not very much like trying to find a needle in a haystack?
It is, especially if you don't have any help. Unless you have a couple of those help aids that I've just described earlier, it's very much like looking for a needle with a haystack. And all you can do is go over it a number of times, especially on large searches. It takes a lot of aircraft. You figure for a 15 by 15 mile area, at least 4 to 5 hours of searching, and you usually do that 3 or 4 times on it.
And I would assume, too, the time of the year that you're doing the search has a lot to do with it, what the weather conditions are, and of course even the daylight time you have.
That's correct, and the color of the aircraft. As you could see in that photograph, a white aircraft is extremely hard to see in snow-covered terrain. Same way with a green one during the summer.
So is it somewhat helpful to recommend to people who have their own private planes that the coloring in all the planes is a help to you, and if you have that unfortunate chance when you have to go looking for a plane? Definitely.
Probably the tool, though, more important than that is the emergency locator transmitter, that they keep that in good shape, know how to use it. Even an airplane, if it goes under some of the heavy canopies we have here in the forest, you may never see it.
We have a shot now of a crash. Could you tell us about this one?
Yes, this one happened up on Mullen Pass. Unfortunately, a number of accidents have happened up there over the last 20 years. As you can see in this one, during the original search, it had snowed about 11 inches in the area between the time he went down and the time the search was started. And the emergency locator transmitter did not go off. So it took till the next summer. It happened, the crew was walking up by it and happened to see it.
I have one more question, then I'll return to Janelle. It's been kind of a long series because we wanted to get through those photographs. You've brought with you a couple of items that one of them is from the aircraft that is supposed to put out the signal. Would you pick one of those up and explain to our viewers how this operates?
This is the emergency locator transmitter. It's a very simple device. It's a 100 milliwatt transmitter. It's got a couple positions. It's mounted in your airplane. It's got an arm position on it where it'll go off automatically in a crash. If a certain G load is exceeded, the G switch in here will turn it on. Hopefully. Sometimes it doesn't happen. If that doesn't happen, it also has a manual on switch that you can turn it on automatically. They've been responsible for saving thousands of lives since they've come out.
How long have they been using those?
These came out right in the early 70s. About right now, they've got 4 satellites up that actually picks up this signal and will retransmit it to stations in St. Louis, and then they would call us and have us go out and try and pick it up there.
I would like for you to turn on, if you would, the signal that you've brought with you so our viewers can hear what kind of signal that is transmitted.
Okay. This is a direction finder that's used by the ground teams. They also have
If you hold it a little bit higher there.
Okay. Have a similar model in the aircraft that can pick up. That's the signal that device there puts out. And with this instrumentation, you can direction find to the site and follow that signal in if you have it. Unfortunately, a lot of crashes like that last one you've seen, either the antenna pulls out or the item is destroyed on
But certainly
impact.
it's another tool that you have in that search.
Definitely.
Janelle Burke.
Well, Mr. Skinner, you've been involved in some of these searches. How do you coordinate the pilot with the ground crew? And do you do that kind of thing as the operations manager? Are you one of the people who'd be doing that coordination?
Well, also the mission coordinator. The aircraft initially are assigned grids, and ground search teams are sent out to the suspected area. And we have radio contact. We can talk.
Between the two?
Between the ground
and
team and the aircraft.
And the aircraft.
We can direct them. And it's really a highly orchestrated operation. It's not just jump in an airplane and go look for a downed one. It's a very scientific system that's used.
And how many people would be likely to be in the ground crew that would be going out?
In a ground team, as many as we can muster. Sometimes it's difficult because of school and things like that, but we've had 5 in a ground team, and sometimes there are several ground teams. It just depends on the availability.
Do you use horses and dogs, or is this all on foot?
Dogs are used. They have the Mountain West Rescue team here locally, and dogs are used, and in cases the Sheriff's Department has some mounted deputies, and they use their horses.
Now, I know that you're not always looking for downed aircraft. You might be looking for something else, like a lost hunter. Would that be correct? And tell us a little bit about that, because I know a lot of people are interested.
Lost hunters, lost hikers, raft groups on the rivers that are overdue. We do firestorm. We did some surveillance, took some of the officers up so they could see areas that had to be evacuated, see how much damage. We transport law enforcement people. We do some work for the U.S. Customs, just in case of any disaster, flooding, whenever we're called upon.
Just a variety of things. Now, do you carry cameras as well, so that you photograph an area if you suspect a problem?
Yes,
And that would be, I'm sure, particularly with natural disasters.
Yes, we do take cameras with us too. Yes.
And so you will photograph the disaster area or the wreckage in addition to also going down.
Mm-hmm. Several of us are also trained in monitoring radioactive spills from the air and from the ground also.
Now, suppose that you get a call. How long do you wait to make sure it's a valid call, or do you wait any length of time at all?
Well, the call is initiated through the either the Bureau of Aeronautics or Wing Commander in Boise, and this is usually, as the satellite goes around the Earth, on the second hit we will be notified that there is a possibility, we're on alert, and on the third hit we are activated. And from that point on, we like to respond within an hour. That's ideal, but if it's midnight, there's a lot of things that can't be accomplished in the dark. However, we have taken off here at midnight to go and search for an aircraft.
So now you've got the call, and suppose now you find someone and they're in need of medical help. Do you use fixed wing and rotary aircraft, or are you basically fixed wing?
Well, we're basically fixed wing, but we do have some helicopters available through the rescue unit in Spokane, the military. Also, a local operator here has donated his helicopter in time of need. So, but primarily the Civil Air Patrol is fixed wing, but we use all the resources we can muster.
So once you find this person and they're in need of help, you radio for help, and then does another team come in that's qualified to do medical help, or do you have some training along that line as well?
Well, certainly we have people that are trained in first aid. The aircraft, of course, would relay the location of the people, and from that point the ground teams would have to take over. We would circle the area and help to direct the ground teams into the area. Sometimes this can be many miles away. We might find an aircraft or a person many miles from where they're supposed to be. So there is a lot of time involved, and one of the tools also that I'd like to mention for the pilots is to be sure and file a flight plan. Give us a chance so that we can get started immediately.
I want to give both of you a chance perhaps then to talk about one of the most rewarding experiences that you've had in your personal experience, and then we'll go on to some other questions from Tony. But I'd like to ask both of you, perhaps starting here with Commander Boyd, what has been one of the most rewarding experiences that you've had in your volunteer work with Civil Air Patrol?
Boy, there's so many of them, you know. That's why I've been staying with it for 20 years. I started out as a cadet in the program back in '72, and there's just so many of them. A number of our cadets have went to the Air Force Academy and have went on into the Air Force and come back and talk to our cadets. That's a nice moment. You know, on search and rescue, some of the finds and saves we've been on have been great.
So those are high points to you. And I suppose sometimes education that results in someone carrying a transmitter when they should be, or filing a flight plan when they should be, that might not have otherwise. Those would be rewarding moments too. What about you, Mr. Skinner? Do you have a time that you can tell about that was particularly exciting and exhilarating?
Well, yes, I do, and there's many of them. I think one of the exciting things is taking the cadets up for an orientation ride, the first one, because I usually let them fly the airplane, and if you could see the excitement on their faces. But I think the one probably that is the most I got the most pleasure out of was finding a downed aircraft with a survivor, and I really felt good because that is what we train for, is to save lives. And in this particular case, I happened to be fortunate to be a member of a crew that did find a surviving pilot.
And someone who was helped by your services.
Yes.
So I take it that in this particular case, the pilot wouldn't have been able to get out by themselves. But through your efforts, you were able to keep this person from just languishing there.
He had laid there over the night and had managed to crawl to an open area, and that's as far as he could get. And we were able to direct the sheriff's posse to that area and picked him up.
Commander Boyd, I have been out to your facility, and you have, in addition to the planes and your personnel and the radios and equipment and maps and so forth, a lot of training for your people, both your ground crew and your pilots. We didn't have the room or space here to bring in a lot of your equipment that you have in your, I call it your hangar, out at the site. But would you tell our viewers about some of the equipment that has to be carried on the plane, and even more so with the ground crew, and what all it includes, so that you may have to be involved with life-saving right on the spot that cannot wait until transportation to the medical center?
Yes, the aircraft all carry survival equipment, of course, and standard first aid equipment. Besides the direction finders and the radio equipment, there may be a number of different radio frequencies we have to operate on. So we are set up so we can plug a number of different radio systems into the aircraft. As far as the ground teams go, we do have 2 ground team vehicles, a 4-wheel drive truck and a van. We all carry emergency first aid equipment. We carry basic extrication equipment in case we get to a scene. Stretchers, ropes, things you need for minor evacuation. And to assist the sheriff. Once the aircraft's found, it's the sheriff's responsibility. We inform him where it is, and our ground crews will go into the site and do what we can until his people arrive, or whatever he wants us to do on the site. It's a pretty big load. The truck's usually loaded down pretty well when you get the ground team and all the equipment in it.
And once that site has been located, a lot of times it's a long ways in and a long ways out. and I know you even have to take along food and all for your own people and so forth. Give us a little description of how, and really with modern technology, that it's very light and
that's true. Most of it's either freeze-dried or a lot of it popular, especially with the cadets who make up a lot of our ground teams, are the MREs. They haven't had to live on them for long periods of time. So, but yeah, food's usually, though, the least of your requirements when you get to the sign. Medical equipment and survival equipment is usually much more important than that.
Mr. Abbott is supposed to be on the program, who is the director of the cadets, and he couldn't be with us today. And so I will ask either one of you, I guess, Commander Boyd, that you, I believe Mr. Skinner said, had more experience in this particular area. Let's talk a little bit about the cadet program and ages. And so we mentioned earlier in the program, but I think some people will be surprised how young they start, and what are the age groups and the process and how they can graduate out of that into the other program.
Okay, their ages, they can start if they finish the 6th grade and 12 years old. Otherwise, they have to be 13. And they can stay in the cadet program up to the age of 18. It's a different program, basically, than the seniors' search and rescue program. They have a number of varied activities they have to perform. It's basically, there's 4 different parts of the program. One is leadership training. This is basically military training. They get how to march, how to wear a uniform, basic customs and courtesies, proper use of the flag, drill and ceremonies, things like that. Another part of it is aerospace education. They're all, we have achievement exams for each of the students, and they have to take exams on both leadership and aerospace education. And we teach them a whole facet of aerospace education topics, everything from rocketry through powered flight, aviation history, items like this. We also have a moral leadership program. Once a month, the unit chaplain discusses a current moral leadership topic with them. And then the search and rescue portion of the program, which is also an important part of it.
I think both of you gentlemen, on behalf of Janelle Burke and her staff, it's been most informative, and again, we commend you for your public service. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you found this program very informative, and we'd like to invite you to be with us again next week at the same time, and we will discuss what we believe to be an issue of interest to you. Until then, please have a good week. I am Tony Stewart.
The North Idaho College Public Forum was videotaped live from the studios of Telemedia Services on the campus of North Idaho College for viewing at this more appropriate time. We invite you to join us again next week for another all-new edition of the North Idaho College Public Forum on this public television station.